is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.tv.
Yeah. Chat. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario on stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so no-go, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in. Full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Sorry, I had the mic on mute there. Anyway, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio, everybody. This is Nick Bernabe here with the antimedia.org. Make sure you catch us Monday through Friday here on UCY.tv at the same place and at the same time. We're going to be breaking down all kinds of news tonight, from politics to foreign policy to activism. I mean, so many things going on right now. I mean, it's literally crazy. So I got a special guest in the studio with me tonight by the name of Manny Aguilar, longtime guest on the Anti-Media Radio.
Manny! Yeah, what's up, everybody? Just enjoying being out of LA here, Chula Vista headquarters of the Anti-Media. So, saludos to everybody out there, including our Benalla brother that's out there in Costa Rica.
I wonder if he's listening right now. You never know. We're also joined tonight by my longtime co-host, DB Schwartz. What's up, DB?
Not a whole lot. Just Nevada Democratic Convention was hilarious, and not in a good way.
Yeah, it was really bad. And Claire, our other guest that's on the line right now, wrote about that. So we're going to talk about that first. What's up, Claire? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Really, really good. And as promised, I'm one of those people that likes to follow through on my promises. We've got an awesome guest lined up for the second half of the show tonight. An author who has a new book out. He's going to call in and tell us a little bit about his book, which is dealing with a bunch of solutions for all these crazy issues that we're going to be talking about tonight. So that should be interesting. Make sure you stick around for the second half. All that stuff being said, we're going to take some callers later on. I'll give you instructions out to take calls later. For now, we're not going to take any because we got so many things to talk about. We even got Jake on the line tonight. What's up, Jake?
Oh, wow.
Hey, I'm nothing much. I'm doing well.
Awesome, man. We got a full house. We got Manny in the studio. We got DB. We got Claire on the line.
Jake, are you in LA yet already?
I actually am in LA right now, but it's on a quick shoot I'm working on. But I shan't be here long.
Oh, okay, well, you're in my hood then.
Yeah? Well, let's grab a beer.
Sounds like a plan. That's what Manny and me are doing right now,
Here we
actually. We're allowed to drink online here on the radio. No FCC regulations. I picked up some craft beer at the store for $4 for a 6-pack the other day. That was pretty cool.
You didn't want to get America?
No, I didn't get the America beer because it was just so cruelly ironic that I just decided not to.
You can't even read it, dude. Too much Latin on that America beer.
I brought in some real stuff, Pacifico.
Maybe some straight gin. We had to use a prop. We had a gin bottle we needed for a prop, and we poured out tons of straight gin.
You poured it out, or you poured it down your throat?
Yeah,
maybe a
down the sink. Man, gin's brutal. I can't drink gin.
Yeah, that's almost.
No, neither can I.
I'm more of a tequila and whiskey guy myself. And you're going to need a lot of tequila and whiskey to deal with the reality of this election, 2016. We got this just crazy workings going on in Nevada, and Claire, you wrote a great article on it. Was Bernie Sanders just robbed of another state in Nevada by the Democratic Party? What do you think, Claire?
Well, yeah, I think he was. And, if anybody's ever listened before, I do not give any credence to the vote. But if anybody is giving credence to the vote, Bernie Sanders was robbed. And, the Democratic Party basically kind of initiated a coup against people who were voting against Hillary and went ahead with basically deciding the election for Nevada, basically saying that Hillary won and Bernie didn't stand a chance, even though delegates were excluded from the count, and they attempted to have a recount, and that was basically shut down for all intents and purposes. It was just crazy. I mean, they said that who was it? Senator Barbara Boxer was saying, if you're booing against Bernie and stuff like that, and it's just so it was such a farce. It's unbelievable. And then they left it in the hands of the lawyers in the end.
And then they called in the state troopers, right?
Right. They called in local police and hotel security and everybody else to deal with it. They adjourned the meeting before the meeting was even over, and they left the stage, left the whole thing in chaos, and blamed it on the Bernie supporters. And they just left chaos in their wake. It was insane. I saw the videos as they happened. They were posted online immediately, and there was no excuse for what happened.
Yeah, I got a clip here from your article, and I'm going to play it. Hopefully the audio comes through right, but what I want to show here is how pissed off these people were. And I don't know what the Democratic Party is doing, but they're alienating a lot of people. Here we go.
They're committing suicide.
Let's see if I can get this. Here we go.
Asking you to have a recount. 9:30 was too soon for a preliminary. The petition did not get to everyone. I don't understand. It has been moved and seconded that the temporary convention rules be passed by the body. All those in favor say aye.
So that loud noise right there was people booing. And it was like one of those, verbal votes or whatever that they do at caucuses.
Exactly, yeah.
And the lady was like, okay, it passed. The people weren't saying yay, they were saying no. So it was literally just a complete subversion of whatever twisted semblance was left of our democracy. It's 2016, it's been laid bare. All that stuff has gone out the window, and people have really noticing it. In fact, one of my most successful articles in the last couple of months was that one about how 2016 was the year people were realizing how really rigged this stuff was. Because, for me, I was so politically disengaged for my entire life that I didn't realize that this stuff was so rigged until 2012, because I was following the election back then, and that's when I realized, oh shit, this is rigged. This is ridiculous. The media controls the narrative. The parties control the rules. It's completely obscure. It's opaque. You can't tell what's going on. And now with Bernie Sanders, the phenomenon of Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, it's really raised a lot of these underlying problems with the electoral system to the surface. And I don't know what's going to happen. I really doubt that Bernie's going to be able to win. But I think the best case scenario is that his people are going to realize, hey, there's something definitely wrong with this system.
Well, up there in L.A., one of the things I will say, Claire, Dee Dee, and Nick, that I've been saying to a lot of people, and it's really true. We've always had observe, elections throughout the world. We send people from the United States to observe. I think that right now we're starting to need observers to come from another country and observe our elections, because I can't tell the difference between elections here in the United States or in Mexico anymore. What's the difference?
Well, what country though, Manny? Because if they try to bring the UN in, it's really what they want.
Yeah, well, I'd like to actually maybe bring in Costa Rica, because they don't have an army.
Perfect.
We should bring in China.
Hell no, Nick.
China's
already here, dude.
I keep reading these articles, or the DNC is really letting loose the hounds in terms of propaganda, trying to scare people into already supporting Clinton. And it's like they're spending so much energy already trying to scare people out of voting for Bernie, and all that energy they could be using to actually fix their system and give people a reason to not disengage from the system. They're so scared of people checking out, but they're not making any effort to reform themselves. It's really it's pathetic and it's insulting.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Like they're hanging on to their establishment candidate like so firmly. It makes no sense at all when they could, if they're really interested in promoting the party, if they really want to promote their party as holding on to this system, then they would be gathering behind Bernie Sanders, whom the people obviously want. It doesn't make any sense, and it's going to be the death of the party.
Well, Hillary has a lot of supporters. I mean, I do think some of these.
No, she doesn't.
I do think some of these contests have been rigged. Are you kidding me?
She does not have a lot of supporters.
No, she doesn't. It's all false.
Look at her pathetic turnouts when she turns up in person anyway.
You guys are wrong. I mean, she has hundreds of thousands, millions. Who are these people?
She does have hundreds of thousands of supporters, you're right.
You really think they're completely... You don't think she has any votes at all?
If it's a voting machine or a closed primary, it's fraud.
I agree.
So
look
she hasn't gotten
at
any
the
votes.
evidence.
She's got all of the unmotivated vote, man, which unfortunately makes up,
Yes, exactly.
I'm
sorry you don't like them, but the fact is there are people out there that support Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I mean,
the DNC is definitely rigging the system, and that's a huge problem. But I mean, you can't ignore the fact that there are a lot of people out there that have been brainwashed into supporting Hillary.
But they're all concentrated in Republican states, so they don't really matter in a real runoff. Trump's going to kill. And I mean kill her.
That's one of the things I was going to say is that literally, like, I mean, there's a couple scenarios here. I think, for one, Trump is the only Republican that Hillary actually has a chance in beating. On the other hand, I think Donald Trump, with Trump, I mean, Clinton is the only one that he can beat. He wouldn't be able to beat Bernie Sanders. There's no way in hell. And so there's a very, very interesting dynamic going on with this voting system. I mean, the cards are now kind of, all laid out there where everyone knows what's going on now. I mean, it's very, very obvious that the political establishment, and when I say that, I think I'm starting to now include the Republican political establishment is getting behind Hillary Clinton, especially the neocons and the foreign.
They're going to merge, aren't they, Nick?
Yeah. This is going to be very, very interesting. And Trump, I mean, just look at the amount of just hit pieces and assassination, character assassination attempts. The recent one from the New York Times, which came out a couple of days ago, where they took one of his former girlfriends and they twisted the stuff that she said about him and made him seem like some kind of sexual predator. I'm not saying that he's not, but the girlfriend came out today and she's like, "Hey, wait, like the New York Times completely twisted what I said. Like I didn't have a bad experience with Donald Trump, but the New York Times kind of spun it and made it look like Donald Trump was this really awful guy. I'm not disputing that he is, but
they twisted this woman's words, and she wasn't trying to, she was trying to talk good of Donald Trump, apparently.
One of the things that I have a problem with, though, Nick, is that here's a woman that I have a lot of respect for because we marched in the Cesar Chavez marches, Dolores Huerta. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is Dolores Huerta thinking about promoting Hillary Clinton? Something's wrong there. I mean, it just blows me away,
She got a $100,000 check.
Oh,
It's this ideology of incrementalism. I don't know if you guys read Obama's recent commencement speech, but there is this entire there's an entire wing of the Democratic Party that has been brainwashed by this this idea of incremental progressivism, and a lot of people that would otherwise be supporting Bernie are clutching to that as an excuse to not revolt against the DNC. It's their final refuge.
So incrementalism, do they mean like incrementally shifting towards oligarchy? Because that's kind of what's going on, right?
Well, yes, that's what they mean, but they don't know it. No, they mean that through a war of attrition and small gains, and by embracing the enemy and compromising and whatnot, that you can ultimately push things forward. The irony behind that is that Obama was completely obstructed by anything he tried to do. So his entire presidency is proof that incrementalism couldn't work, even if we're going the direction you wanted it to work.
So sticking to this election stuff, because we got to cover a lot of ground here because we got a guest coming on. It looks like Sanders is about to win the next state, too. I think it's in Kentucky, in coal country, where Hillary Clinton totally flopped. Claire, you wrote another great piece on this. She made some really strange remarks about coal miners, saying she's going to put them out of work. And then she goes into coal country trying to campaign, and she's getting interrupted and protested at every stop. That happened again today. So it looks like Bernie Sanders is going to rack up another win, and he may win Puerto Rico as well, which I think votes tomorrow or sometime this week. So Puerto Rico and Kentucky, looks like Clinton's going to lose there. I mean, back to what you were saying, Jake. I mean, they're spending the Democratic Party is spending a lot of money to try to convince Democratic voters to embrace Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's going to be she's leading in the polls right now by a small margin against Trump, but I think Trump really could beat her. And I think that there's going to be a lot of political meddling, just like we already see going on against Bernie Sanders, against Hillary.
And they're going to blame Bernie instead of blaming themselves for putting up a flawed candidate.
Exactly. Bernie Sanders is going to be blamed for losing, just like, who was it? Nader was blamed that one time for the Democrats losing?
Oh yeah. People still hate him. I just read an article today saying Bernie has to be careful not to be the next Ralph Nader.
Yeah, because it's his fault that these politicians, that no one likes these politicians, right?
This is how Trump is going to win, though, too. Because they're so devoted to installing this establishment candidate that nobody wants. She is going to lose, ultimately, because she does not have any real fan base. She does not have any real support. And when she goes up against Trump, it's going to be Trump, because no matter how much the establishment doesn't necessarily want him in there are enough supporters behind him. His following is phenomenal. He will ultimately take this election, I bet now.
Yeah, and back to what we were arguing about earlier, Hillary does have a lot of voters, but I don't think she has people that want to vote for her. She has people that are going to vote for her, but she's not people that want to vote for her. That's a big difference. The people that are supporting Trump and supporting Sanders, these are people that want to go out there and vote and have their guy win.
I do think that what's going to happen, though, is that I do think Bernie Sanders, he's going to push hard for, getting his position, getting his platform worked into Hillary's message. I mean, I really do think that they will join forces and they will swing. Unfortunately, I think they will swing a lot of the Bernie people over to Hillary, because that's what they do. And most people are not purists, and they will turn. So, I mean, I think it would take a mighty huge event of some kind to stop a lot of Bernie people from switching to Hillary. I personally, I won't. I won't vote for her, but a lot of my Democrat friends will, and I think Trump has a fan base, but he also has an equally big, if not larger, group of people that think he's like the Antichrist, and so does Hillary. So it'll be it's who's the most hateable person. That's
Once the Trump PR machine gets going on her, though, she's completely character assassinated. She's going to be done, man. She's unelectable. Bernie's been super soft on her because he's a party guy, man, at this point. Like, he's trying to make something happen, but he's still playing by the rules as much as he can. He has a pension to protect, let's be real. So, it's going to be Trump bringing in people that are going to dig into her past. I'm sure he alone, if he wanted to, could get that indictment to come through.
I was just going to bring that up. I mean, we can't forget the fact that she's under federal investigation for, criminal acts, both for herself and for the Clinton Foundation. So the chances that she might actually end up being prosecuted should actually play a role in this, like fairly significantly.
That's why they have Biden in the bullpen.
Well, the other thing, and, I hate to go too far down the conspiracy hole here, but that's why I thought that, I thought that was going to be part of it all along, is that, she was going to be the presumptive Democratic nominee, and, it's the Republicans' turn to have the White House. I mean, the Democrats have had it for 8 years. It's the Republicans' turn so that a Republican can get into office, and then he can blame all of our problems on Obama. That's how it goes. Mm-hmm. But this Trump thing is kind of a wild card, and now I think that she won't be indicted because of Trump, because they don't want him to win, and then now she won't get indicted. If it was Marco Rubio that she was running against, well, the indictment would fly, and then Marco Rubio would be a shoo-in. I mean, that's just that. I think that's how it was supposed to play out, but it didn't work out that way. And that's the only thing I like about Donald Trump, is that he's not part of the plan here, and I think that may be the only positive thing about him. But anyway, on the case of the platform, Jake, as you said, man, it's unfortunate that I think a lot of people will buy into that, especially if Sanders does team up with Clinton. But looking at, for example, we look over at Obama's platform, and Obama sounded great coming into office, and he had a great platform. He was going to end the wars, and he was going to stop nation building. I seem to recall that George Bush said the same exact thing in 2000 when he was running. Anyway, that's beside the point. Obama is basically going back on everything he said. It was just, last week or 2 weeks ago that they announced that now they got boots on the ground in Yemen, which I believe that would have made Obama's 9th war that he started or got us involved with. And now today, as Claire reported on the anti-media, now they're saying not only is there boots on the ground in a limited number in Libya, but now the U.S. is getting ready to arm the Libyan government, which basically pretty much that Libyan government doesn't really exist. I mean, there's a dozen different parties in Libya claiming to be the Libyan government, and I guess there's one there that is UN backed, which means that they're probably Western backed. They let us take their oil, so that we're cool with them or whatever. But Claire, tell us a little bit about this. What is this? Obama's 9th or 10th war here now?
I don't even know. I've lost track. But yeah, I mean, they're ostensibly going to arm the UN-backed faction of government that is supposedly now installed and is supposedly valid in order to help fight Daesh or ISIL. I mean, it's like ISIL has become the excuse for everything. And in the meantime, this self-called Islamic State is gaining foothold everywhere because the U.S. and all these other countries are infighting everywhere in the Middle East. So we have, yet again, we're going to lift these arms embargoes just for the purpose of arming the Libyan government and their fighters. And it's just devolving into this utter and complete chaos and mess. I mean, this is just yet another place where we're on the ground, but not really on the ground because, these soldiers have spotted U.S. Special Forces on the ground, not fighting, but on the front lines. I mean, we've said no boots on the ground hundreds of times. We might as well have, and here we are again in yet another place, and you can see where it's leading.
The weird thing about what's going on really in the Middle East is it's like an internal proxy war because it's all these CIA assets fighting the Pentagon, if you really look at it.
Yeah, that's
exactly
Syria right now, too. It was making headlines a while back because they're so confused with who they're backing. Literally, the Pentagon and the military are backing one branch of people, and then the CIA is backing another branch of people, and then those two guys are fighting against each other. It's like a military contractor's wet dream, right? You arm both sides and let them fight each other, and you sell them the weapons. They love it. These guys are making all kinds of money, but a bunch of innocent people are dying. I mean, the last estimate I saw, and this is probably like 6 months old in Libya, was 50,000 people dead since the U.S. toppled Gaddafi in 2011. Now, keep in mind, Gaddafi, in a very similar vein to Saddam Hussein, bad guy, strong-armed dictator, but he kept the place in check, and he kept it from being a total shithole and just civil war, just like Iraq has turned into. Same exact thing is now going on in Libya, and we're trying to make the same thing happen in Syria. But they actually have an ally in Russia over there. Saddam Hussein didn't have an ally. Gaddafi didn't have an ally. So those governments fall down quickly. But then who replaces them? ISIS. You know what I mean? It's like ridiculous. And we keep doing it over and over again without learning anything. At this point, are these guys even trying to win wars anymore? Or are they just trying to make money from selling them arms? I mean, I don't.
We can't even declare war, Nick. We haven't declared war since World War II. We haven't declared war. We've just been doing private contractors, and all the dudes in the volunteer army have been getting screwed.
And they don't even make a premise of like trying to say, oh, well, we might go and fight over here anymore. It's like suddenly we find out that we're already fighting. Like in the case of Yemen, we find out 2 weeks after the fact that there are already troops on the ground fighting. I mean, this has become a pattern.
We don't fight wars. We manage assets.
Pretty much. Yeah. And you know what? All this stuff, as DB was saying, none of it's declared, so that makes it pretty much extrajudicial. It's unconstitutional what we're doing over there. And the other thing now with Libya, I mean, there's an arms embargo on Libya from the UN because they're worried that any arms that go into that country are going to be picked up by militant Islamists. And the government in Libya is a militant wing of Islamists over there. And we have no problem backing them with weapons. I mean, same exact kind of people that we're backing in Syria, too. So, like, not only is it unconstitutional, but even international law tells us, look, we don't want to be doing this. But I just saw Kerry today. I guess I can play the clip. Kerry's saying, hey, we're going to find a way around this UN arms embargo, and we're going to arm them anyway. I mean, this is crazy, man. It's crazy. And back to the whole political thing, the platform. That's why it doesn't mean shit. Obama ran on, I'm going to end the wars. I'm not going to do all the shit that Bush is doing. Obama, in many ways, I can argue that he's worse than Bush. In some ways, the way that he's conducted himself.
He can get away with more, Nick.
Well, yeah, that's true. And unfortunately, the same would be with Hillary. She would get away with it because the left, which is typically the base of anti-war opposition and people that say, hey, we got to stand up to this stuff, they're nowhere to be found when Obama's in office, and they're not going to be anywhere to be found when Hillary Clinton's in office either. That's why, Donald Trump would probably be a better option over Hillary because at least people would say, no, I don't want him to do that. With Obama and Hillary, it's like, whatever. It's a democratic war. It's a good war, The Democrats are doing it. It must be, for freedom or something. So it's just, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's a scary proposition when all the old school hippies get behind war.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I want to cover one or two more stories before we go to our guest. The Saudi stuff with 9/11 is just becoming just overwhelming. And Bloomberg got a FOIA request recently, and they found out about this isn't even on the website yet. We may cover this in the next day or two about the Saudis' treasury holdings of the U.S. government, and coincidentally they exploded after 9/11. I mean, they went from very little to having like almost 200 trillion or 200 billion in treasury assets. So after 9/11, the Saudis started pumping money into the U.S. government. But another article we covered today on the Anti-Media by Kerry Wedler was about these 80,000 secret pages the FBI has been holding that show ties between Saudi Arabia and the 9/11 terrorist attacks. I mean, how much more information do we need that one of our quote-unquote allies, which happens to also be a dictatorship, was directly behind one of the worst terrorist attacks, or the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil ever, and we still cooperate with them. We're still selling them weapons. We're still doing. I mean, it makes the conspiracy theorists not seem that far away from the truth. That's just. I guess I'll just leave it at that. You want to read this really long article, a lot of information here, but go search on the Anti-Media all the stuff we have on Saudi Arabia, man, because the evidence is piling up. I mean, people have been saying this forever. I mean, shit. what was it, like 16 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi Arabian or something like that? I mean,
hey, Nick, do you think they're being set up as patsies as the one that's going to fall because we're going to go post oil soon? So fuck them.
Well, yes. There's not much of another reason why we would be, this relentless revelations against Saudi Arabia just tells you that we're getting ready to dump that relationship pretty soon.
We're going to let Russia just take them out.
But that's why they're like inextricably tied like to our economy too. That's why they have so many shares in our economy. That's why that happened. Like it's going to be the downfall of both of us.
It's another limited hangout.
Yeah, man.
It's more of that deep, oily state.
The petrodollar, that's what we're talking about here. That's, it's going to come into contention really soon here, and that's going to be some really murky times to be an American, to be in the U.S. anyway. So we got that. The Saudi stuff is just crazy. I mean, there's something big's going to happen on that front really soon. What else do we got big on the site today? Over the last week, we got these 5 stories ignored while everyone was arguing about the transgender bathroom thing, which I understand is a big topic for a lot of people.
Make them all private, damn it.
I mean, there's plenty of solutions out there. Porta potties are one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to run down the list here because these are some really big stories that we covered last week. Hillary Clinton is continuing to just get hammered on the corruption front. I don't think we need to talk too much about that because we talk about Hillary Clinton every show.
I heard Bill Clinton's going to bring another tech boom out of nowhere.
He's going to be in charge of the economy, right? Because he's going to pass NAFTA 2.0. This guy that was arrested, Claire, you actually wrote this story. I'm not sure if we covered it on the show yet. This guy was arrested for exposing weaknesses in the Florida's voting system and on their voting website. And they actually reported the flaws in the system to the government, and then this guy was arrested. I mean, it's like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, he basically did a pen test. I mean, a penetration test of finding flaws in the system. He found flaws, and he cooperated fully when he was caught. I mean, he tried to report the flaws to the electoral board and say, hey, look, this is a problem. You need to fix it. And instead they turned around and turned it over to the police and law enforcement. And law enforcement came after him as if he were the criminal, and he cooperated fully and handed over everything that they wanted. They still came and raided his house and took his equipment, including his computer, and then they prosecuted him. I mean, it's like a witch hunt, and it makes you really question, like, why is it they went after him if he tried to do the right thing?
I wish they do that every time those voting machines were caught, like, flipping votes. There's already been, like, 5 instances so far this election where it's, like, people complain. They click the button to vote for one person, and then, like, it flips the vote to the other person. I wish
Well, it's obvious. Why?
What was that?
They should arrest them.
They need to arrest the voting machines.
My vote got flipped to Ross Perot in 2012.
That's a good vote, man.
So annoying.
At least you didn't waste your vote. I mean, you could have, voted.
No, I did waste my vote. I voted for Obama.
A vote for Perot in 2012 was a vote for Trump this year.
There you go, man. Seriously. Let me see. I got a couple more. Oh, man, this Facebook censorship stuff, I want to keep hitting on this just because we've been throttled by Facebook. And so anyone listening tonight, make sure you go to our website, theantimedia.org, instead of obviously follow us on Facebook too, and that's how most of you guys have found us, because for a long time Facebook treated us well because we did really good work. But now they want everyone to pay to get any reach. I mean, we've got like almost 1.7 million followers that we've built up through a lot of hard work and a lot of networking and a lot of creation and a lot of artistic and a lot of writing and a lot of effort. And now Facebook wants us to pay to reach our own fans. So anyone listening tonight, I know there's a bunch of people on the line tonight. I've already had to ignore like 10 calls. Unfortunately, we have so much to cover. We're not going to be taking calls. We have a special guest on the line that I'm going to bring on in a couple minutes. But Facebook is censoring stuff. The most recent revelation was that they were manipulating the trending topics feature, and they were quashing stuff related to conservative topics and even Rand Paul and other stuff. They weren't allowing the IRS scandal, which was supposedly targeting conservative funding groups. They weren't allowing that to trend. But Facebook has been treating a lot of people badly for a long time. I've been banned. A bunch of our pages have gotten taken down. It goes on and on. I can't wait for there to be a new alternative to Facebook. But at the moment, there are a bunch, but nothing big enough to really matter yet. You know what I mean? I mean, Instagram, that was bought by Facebook. Twitter is kind of not useful for driving traffic to our websites. There's other options out there, and I just hope sooner or later a lot of people start moving to one, because Facebook has been a dictator in the social media field for too long. They've grown too comfortable.
Can we group fund buying MySpace back?
Yeah, we'd have to buy it back from Justin Timberlake, though.
Yeah, he'll let it go for cheap.
You know what's funny is that Fox News at one point had bought Facebook, and that's when it flopped. Or News Corp, my bad. Anyway, weird stuff being found in hamburger meat. I didn't want to read this because I love hamburgers, but they found rat DNA and human DNA and a bunch of pathogens and stuff.
Well, become a vegetarian, Nick.
I knew
a lot of fingers in that meat.
Yeah,
become a vegetarian,
the vegetarian stuff didn't fare much better, though, unfortunately.
Some of the veggie patties were actually found with meat in them, too. So you got to be careful there, too.
I had a carrot that had a hot dog in it. Disgusting.
And then this other story, and this is really, really tragic. Due to the maybe intended, but unintended consequences of the U.S. war in Afghanistan. Yeah, that's another one of those things that Obama said he was going to end. Now that looks like it's never going to end. It's now the longest war in U.S. history. Yeah, it's longer than World War II. Because of that, a whole generation of children in Afghanistan are turning to heroin because they're so dilapidated, they're so poor, they're so hungry. And heroin there, because ever since the U.S. invaded in 2001, heroin was almost, or the poppy crop, was almost eradicated, and now it's up like 90%. Heroin is cheaper than food on the streets of Afghanistan, and a bunch of children are being hooked on this stuff. So, I mean, horrible horrible thing going on. And this is just one of our wars. I mean, like I said, Obama has gone on and started more new wars than Bush ever dreamed of. And just in the past couple weeks, it's 2 new ones in a couple weeks. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. And before Nick gets his guest on the show, I want to say the reason the United States is also supplying a lot of weapons to Mexico is because we're right on the border, and they want to make sure that they can keep activists like myself and all these normalistas and everybody in check. We're getting beaten up by the cops with all this equipment and all this stuff and all that. And one of the messages that's coming from the Dreamers' moms to Obama on the immigration and DAPA and DACA, I hope you guys heard of DAPA and DACA. Basically, the slogan is, Obama, don't deport my mama.
It's a good slogan. Yeah. Let's do a quick Latin American roundup real quick because, man, there's a bunch of news going on. First of all, down in Brazil, some major social unrest going on. And, I see varying reports. I mean, people... I guess obviously the government of Brazil is corrupt. I mean, name a government that's not corrupt, right? So the person in charge, I think Dilma Rousseff, I think her name was.
She got elected.
She was a socialist that people wanted, and she was overthrown in a coup. And now they have.
But she was overthrown by basically CIA implants of people who are much more corrupt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The guy, according to what I read in by WikiLeaks, they dropped some info about the guy that's replacing her, and apparently the guy is like an informant for the U.S. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not doubting that Dilma was probably corrupt. I mean, all these politicians are corrupt, man. All these governments are corrupt. But
she was the least corrupt out of all of them, and the ones who are replacing her are actually indictable by law, whereas she only had committed some minor crimes.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. Brazil is the most populous country in Latin America. It's obviously the biggest economy. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Big powerhouse.
It's spooked all the countries because Nick, I know a lot of people in Peru down there, man. So it spooked all the countries around there because they're like, oh shit, there was just a coup in Brazil. Brazil has more people than all the rest of the countries by double around it. And the only big modern military, and all the people are getting all freaked out now.
Yeah, it's a very precarious situation, and the Olympics are about to happen down there, man. In a couple weeks.
That's what I was going to say. Okay.
So it's very, very interesting scenario going on in Brazil. We're gonna have to wait and see how it plays out. But all that info, keep that in mind. I don't know, I'm not an expert in Brazil. But the other thing going on in Latin America is this thing with Venezuela, man. The economy is literally melting down. There's riots in the street, looting. I mean, this is this is the kind of stuff that preppers in the U.S. have been saying that could happen here. But again, in Venezuela, it's another one of those situations where I see so many of my friends and so many people online like, oh, that's socialism for you.
That's fascist socialism, though.
It is, but the other thing, too, and I'm not doubting that there's a bunch of mismanagement going on down there, a bunch of corruption, bureaucracy, all the crap that comes along with big government. The other thing that is going on in Venezuela, man, is that they're victims of the Monroe Doctrine, just like Cuba, dude. They're embargoed. We've constantly been meddling in their affairs. I mean, the U.S., Venezuela is a big victim of the U.S., man, and sanctions and all the stuff that we do. These are things that the U.S. does for foreign policy that is not targeted at the bad people in government or the bad actors in the corporate arena down there, man. It's targeted at the people. They do sanctions to get people to unrest and to try to overthrow their government, man. And that's what's going on in Venezuela right now, too.
Toilet paper is a problem right now in Venezuela.
They can't even get toilet paper. The food's running out. I mean, they're rationing electricity. Very bad scenario. And these guys over here in the U.S. are sitting back. These oligarchs are sitting back, just licking their chops, waiting for it to fall. I mean, they're happy that these people are starving in the street.
They're gonna buy that oil field up.
Yeah, man.
Yes, they are.
Resources down there in Venezuela, dude, and that's what we want. And they got a government down there. I don't agree with their politics, but they're not friendly to the U.S. interests, and therefore they have to go. That's what the CIA thinks, and that's what's going to happen really soon. And it's really unfortunate. And you know what? The reason being is the people in the U.S. do not have a grip on their government. We can't control our government. We can't tell them what to do. We can't tell them not to go ship arms into Libya. We can't tell them to not send boots on the ground into Yemen. We can't tell them not to send boots on the ground in Syria. We can't tell them that we want them out of Iraq. They just won't listen. They won't listen. We can't tell them anything. They're going to topple Venezuela, and they're going to get away with it. We're not going to do nothing about it. The U.S. people aren't going to do it. What's it going to take, man? What is it going to take for people to finally stand up and say, you know what? Maybe it's time that maybe it's time we stop building this global empire. We need to stop hurting people all around the world. On that note, I'm going to bring in our guest. Let me pull up his info here. Sorry. Matthew Holbert. He's author of the book Philosophea. Matthew, you there?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, we hear you. Hey, man,
okay,
thanks for joining the show tonight. We've got a pretty lively one going. What do you think of all this stuff going on with the U.S. empire, man? First off, before we get into your book, I mean, what's your take on the empire that the U.S. is right now operating?
Well, I do talk about the U.S. empire a lot in my book. That's kind of the subject matter as to, like, why should you read this book in the first place? Because solutions would be kind of useless without recognizing that there's a problem and vice versa. It would be impossible really to recognize that there's a problem without some kind of a solution. And what I write about is the solution to these kind of problems. The empire that exists in America is not unique. It's been sort of the history of humanity to have these kind of empires eventually and then for them to collapse under their own pressures. I think honestly that it's emblematic of the fact that we are facing the end of America with the fact that Trump is running for president. It's not that he's a particular kind of person, it's just that it is kind of iconic and it's almost a parody of itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost as though America is like sort of its own joke at this point.
We've become a Family Guy episode.
Exactly. It's a strange reality. I never would have envisioned that this would be sort of the character of America at this point, but nothing surprises me now, basically.
It's not Trump coming along just like throwing out all these ideas, and it's like he's convinced and fooled a bunch of people to fall for this crap. This is what people are thinking, man, and really, like you said, it is emblematic of the end of the empire. People are looking for answers. They don't know what the hell happened.
Well, and this is the thing. This is why it's ripe for the kind of solutions that I think that are important at this point, is because why the hell are we resorting to these people? Why are we not representing ourselves at this point?
Good question, man. Good question.
I mean, that's really what this whole sort of situation I think is impending us towards, is us representing ourselves in a sense of sovereignty, true sovereignty.
So on the note of this empire, you said I haven't read your book yet. I think I'm gonna check it out after in the coming weeks here, because I just got done reading Fahrenheit 451, and I'm looking for something new to read. So I may pick up your book.
Sure.
It's called Philosophea, so it's spelled like Philoso and then Phea. I guess people can find it on Amazon. You got a website where people can find this book on?
There is a create space for it, and that's really the more direct way to get to it. But yeah, it's also available on Amazon, and I think it's also for like the Kindle. There's a Kindle version of it as well.
Is it only in English?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. It's only in English.
Thank you.
Well, we can work on getting a translation of that pretty soon here.
That would be amazing to do that. Yeah.
So on this topic of the empire, you said you've got some solutions.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, man? Like, what can we do? Where do we start to try to oppose or reel in or do away with this empire?
Right. Well, I mean, it always is going to have to start from the grassroots level. This has been proven pretty much throughout the history of revolutions and the history of civil rights and just the whole, nonviolent revolution kind of tactic. There's an incredible book called From Dictatorship to Democracy by Gene Sharp. And in that book, he lists 198 different strategies or different methods of nonviolent action that you can take. And I recommend that people read that book. It's kind of a small handbook. It's about 100 pages long. It's a big print, so it's, the font size is big, and it's a small book, so it's easy to read. And I think that that's important to read if you are intending to get active in anything like, sort of a transformation like we're sort of intending, I believe, here. But I do have a method that I've come up with based on the research that I've done, and really it's a 6-stage sort of method or kind of a process that starts with strategy, configuring some kind of an idea about what you want to see after or to replace the current empire with, as well as, that's the big sort of picture idea, as well as the small picture about, getting together and actually forming groups or sort of cells, if you will, of different, people coming together to create an organization, which is the second stage of this, is to actually form a group, form some kind of a means to, spread the ideas that are essentially counter to our culture right now. And that would be the third stage, which is education. Education is sort of an actualization of this process by actually spreading the knowledge that you have or spreading the ideas to other people. And then once you do that, you get sort of a conversation going, a synergy going. And what that could be called is a form of mastermind, which is just a group of people sort of creating a hive mind, if you will, a kind of a bigger sort of perspective that is created through the aggregate of the different people. And then from there, once you have sort of an idea about what you want to do in terms of an actual sort of activism or agoristic sort of activity that you could do, then is time for dissemination or communication to more people about this idea. That would be social media, what have you, and spreading the word. And then once more people hear about this, and then it creates the possibility of, let's say, like a conference, a meetup of larger proportions than the original just sort of mastermind group, that ultimately results in a state of either transcendence in terms of changing the laws, changing the government, changing what have you, or a state of manifestation wherein the group has in and of itself created the kind of organization or created the kind of community that it wants to have.
Vacation what?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, man. We had someone calling in to ask you a question, but I got to give the rules out real quick. I don't mean to interrupt. Anyone wanting to call in to ask Matthew a question, the number is 718-717-8296. But if you do call, make sure you mute your phone, your microphone, and to turn off the radio so that we don't hear it. Otherwise, it'll mess up our audio. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah. So once basically we've gone through these stages, it's possible, I believe, to, and this is proven by, this has been shown to be the case with sort of, different activism in the past, is that once these stages have been taken, basically it can actually affect the situation or the kind of systems that are at hand. It requires grassroots. It requires people getting organized and actually doing things in their community that are necessary for the kinds of changes that we want to see to take place. For instance, I ran for commissioner in my local area, not necessarily with the anticipation of actually winning, but just to spread new ideas to people that, or just to spread the idea that, an alternative is possible in terms of where they can put their votes. This, if it were to be picked up, I think could be potentially very powerful in terms of local people getting involved in local politics, not necessarily as a way of like being sort of following along with the system as it is, but instead to point out the fact that the system itself is antiquated, it's obsolete, and we need to create a new system. If people ran for office under that platform, not only would it essentially, well, at first I'm sure it would get a lot of flack, but ultimately the outcome would be people like, I think the common saying by Gandhi was that, at first people react with anger or distrust, and then eventually they claim that it was their own idea in the first place. And I think that that's ultimately what will happen with the kind of changes that we all want to see. It's that first the older generations will reject it, and then they will be fearful, chaos will ensue, and then eventually the reality is that the solutions or the alternatives that will actually come into existence will make them feel like, what the hell were we doing before? Why didn't we do this? It was all our idea. Yeah, of course it was our idea.
That's a pretty interesting prospect. I think it actually has a lot of possibility. I've always been a huge fan of like local autonomy and stuff like that because, one of the biggest problems I see is that people tend to allow themselves to get governed by like this just really higher power, and we like here in the U.S. Right. It's like this little tiny federal government. I say tiny by numbers. I mean, we've only got like 600 people in Congress and an executive right. and a Supreme Court. I mean, those are the only federally elected politicians really, and we allow 350 million people are allowing themselves to be governed by like 600. I mean, it's ridiculous. How could people expect to be represented by 600 politicians when there's like 330 million of us out here? I mean, it's just not even realistic.
Well, this is sort of the argument that's been put against the Constitution and the government that we have, is that it's not representative at all, actually.
And it's not. It really is.
It's an oligarchy. It's been an oligarchy since its beginnings, but only recently has it been addressed by, I think it was, what was it, Princeton or one of the Ivy League colleges, universities, as being an oligarchy. And it's not as though we needed them to validate that notion. It was already the case a long time ago. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize that. It just takes somebody who's well versed in history.
Exactly, and that's the problem, man. Is that people tend to forget, what's gone on recently. I mean, as you mentioned at the beginning, these empires rise and fall. I mean, since the Greeks, man, and they were the first to really experiment with democracy on a large scale, and that turned into an empire. And then the Romans picked up the torch, and then that turned into an empire. And the U.S., by all measures, we got a similar representative democracy, or in name only, that the Greeks and the Romans had. And look, ours is turning into an empire as well.
And what are the factors, though? What are the factors that created those civilizations in the first place? Those are the things that I like to look at, is because those can potentially flower and blossom solutions to the current situation. I'm not saying necessarily that I would want to heal the American disease, as it were, or the American disease of empire or what have you, because I don't think it's possible at this point. I think honestly it's too far gone, and that we need a new system. And in that sense, I'm kind of a radical, because I believe we should pull it out from the roots and just start from scratch, basically. But essentially, the reason that these civilizations came about in the first place was because of their education, because they had their roots in education initially, and in thought, and in wanting to seek higher levels of thinking and understanding, that at this time, we've sort of become complacent and apathetic as far as our passion for learning, and as far as the meaning of education in our society. And what I was talking about earlier with that 6-stage process, I call that process the hexivium, meaning it is a 6-road sort of junction point that leads to, hexivium is just really a 6-road juncture in terms of the Greek sort of, translation of it. But essentially what it's designed to do is to lead us to a world-centric sort of perspective, where the issue is human emancipation, and really the emancipation of life from any form of tyranny or control system. And that includes religion and whatever really is existing as a sort of tyrannical method of control. And in order for that process to go into existence effectively, in order for it to be effective, there have to be people that are populating that process, who are following another process, which precedes that, called the pentivium, which is a 5-stage process.
You got to be. We only got like 30 more seconds.
Okay, sure. But the pentivium is a process. If you look it up, it's spelled Penpentivium, and that is an adult education process. And so, in order for people to be effective at activism, they have to educate themselves, essentially.
Awesome, man. Very, very interesting work. I'm going to pick up your book. Where can we find it again?
It's on createspace.com, and I have a number here that you can find it more directly through
We're out of